Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. It's our Leeds United season preview with myself, Stephen Brown, and alongside me as ever is Jason Booker. Welcome along, everybody. Please get your likes in, retweet if you're watching on Twitter or X, and also like and subscribe on YouTube. Get your comments in as well ahead of the big kickoff against Portsmouth on Saturday at midday. Jason, well, we're just a couple of days away now from the start of another season. All that waiting, pre-season, the Euros, it's all finished. We're almost there. Just generally, are you feeling excited? Are you ready to go again?
We've got all that pretend football out of the way, haven't we? The Euros, that Mickey Mouse stuff. Yeah, mate, I can't honestly believe that we're back already. I mean, obviously we had the late finish of the playoffs, and our season got extended anyway. Then really by 2 weeks, pretty much from everyone else. And then before you know it, I think it was about 10-day gap before the Euro started. And then I think we've had 2 weeks really. I think it was maybe shorter than that, a week before pre-season started after the Euros. And obviously because we got as far as we did, we in the Euros, that even pushed it on even further. So it just feels like we've not been away from football really. And then before you know it, you're into transfer rumours and players coming back and videos, and we've been able to enjoy pre-season, haven't we? 5 wins from 5 and far less upheaval than previous. Sure, we've lost a couple, but yeah, I think we've now geared up to 2 days before the start of the season, and we're ready. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Welcome along, everyone. Ryan, evening, mate. Glad to have you along. We've already got our esteemed colleague, Mr. Bell, in the building. Evening, lads. Looking forward to your playoff finish in 24-25. Oh, mate, don't even wind me up about that. I don't think I can do the playoffs again there. And Ryan, again, I'm honestly more excited for the game against Portsmouth than I was for England final.
I get it. I think most Leeds fans feel exactly the same. I think most passionate club supporters feel like that though, don't they? I mean, unless you're like a Lincoln fan or something like that, who they don't ever do anything, so he'll be more geared for the international duty. So
yeah, exactly. What is it, the Imps or whatever they are? Something very strange going on in there, old Lincoln there. I can't believe it. It does feel like a bit of a blur of football, doesn't it, at the minute? Because I think with England as well, what was annoying with the tournament this year as well is because we had a lot of kind of consternation about how poorly England were playing. It almost felt like this kind of debate going on. It wasn't a tournament you could just sit back and enjoy almost. No. It was like, it felt kind of a bit anguished and a bit, and that coming after the playoff defeat, it was like, God, I just want to kind of enjoy football again instead of arguing about it. And then before you know it, like you say, the season is it's here and we go again.
Yeah, no, you spot on. I mean, the whole tournament really felt like we should have been going out in every game. It felt like every game was a bit of a bonus, and it was just a slagging match about how Southgate was terrible and how the football was awful. And yeah, it was a really weird international tournament, really, wasn't it? So yeah, just always delighted to be back, mate. Even though it's a championship season ahead of us, still glad that club football's back and we get to enjoy the pain of Leeds. I just hope that we can kind of just enjoy every week for what it is. Again, I very much did that last season up until the tail end.
You did
whereas then I started to get a bit stressed when it all started going a little bit south. But I feel like I'll probably be able to do the same again. But the pressure's ramped. The pressure is so much bigger this year.
I agree. Evening, Johnny. I think that hits the nail on the head. I mean, I think last year, kind of going into last year, I was still a bit hungover from getting relegated, and I was just kind of a little bit, back in the championship, stuck here again. We'd seen enough of the championship, and we thought we were finally done with it, and then it obviously has come back to haunt us. This year, it's a strange one for me this year because I think you've hit the nail on the head, and the pressure being ramped up. I think it feels pretty much like, this really is our kind of best opportunity now. I feel that if, we don't get promoted this season, I think, we're going to see a significantly weakened team going into next season. And then your chances just reduce. We've seen that with other teams. Look at Norwich, and they were in the Premier League yo-yoing, and now they just look as if they're kind of getting further and further away from it. So it feels like there's a lot of pressure on this season. And we're going to get into everything. We're going to look at the squad. We're going to look at the manager, the other teams as well, and what they're doing. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? I think. Do you sense that you're going to kind of feel that pressure kind of straight off? If we drop points against Portsmouth, is it like, already it'll feel like?
I mean, maybe not that early, but I get your point, because I think like last season, even though we started terribly, we were very quickly. It very quickly felt like we had nothing to lose. And because there was so much unrest at the beginning of the season and we had so much kind of catching up to do, it always felt quite nice to be the chaser rather than the chasee. Yeah. I don't think we can have them excuses this season. Yeah. This squad and Daniel Farke has to put themselves in a position where automatic promotion is in their control all season. I don't think it's good enough this season to be behind. We could make excuses last season for the way that we started, and Leicester was so powerful, and Southampton and Ipswich were a one-off and an anomaly. And I don't think there's any of them this season. Sure, we might get into the season and see that Portsmouth are an anomaly, but I don't see it. And I also don't see the strength in the teams that have come down in the same way that Leicester and Southampton, and us included, had that same kind of power. I think Burnley are going to have a transition. Scott Parker plays nothing like Vincent Kompany. I don't rate him in the slightest. We've had his conversations about Scott Parker. He came up in the chat that we had on Monday night, and Chris were kind of defending him. Well, he's got promoted twice. Yeah, he has, with two monster teams both times, and both times he made it look extremely hard work. I mean, he ended up bottling promotion automatically with Mitrovic up front the first season with Fulham, and kind of stumbled over in the playoffs. They didn't deserve to win the final either. Brentford were by far the better team that day. And then he did exactly the same job pretty much with Bournemouth. That team should have gone up automatically, and they didn't. So I personally see that as, if Burnley fail to go up promote automatically and end up finishing in the playoffs, that's a bonus for Leeds United, because they're one of the two teams, I think, really, if we were all managed by the same quality of manager, let's just all say all three of us had Daniel Farke, I would expect Burnley to probably pick Luton, and Leeds would go up with them. But I don't see that being the case. I think Luton will have more than Burnley this season. I think they'll win more games that they shouldn't. I think they'll get more games, more points over the line, because of the difference between Rob Edwards and Scott Parker. I think is the difference. So, I think that's how I feel about it, mate.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's interesting what Farke said today in the presser as well, because it was put to him about how do you compare the situation at this point this season compared to last year. And he did say, he does like to remind everyone that we've lost players that we've lost this season. He name dropped again. He mentioned obviously a team that loses Archie Gray, Somerville, and even threw Kamara in there as well. It's not easy to say a team that loses those players that you're better. However, he did say from a preparation point of view, from just the situation alone, it's a much, much stronger position. I think that is right. I think, that is right. Though obviously, Jadon Bogle, players like that can bring that better balance. You are losing a huge, huge talent in Somerville and someone who contributed massively. But the starting point, Jason, is just completely different, isn't it? This time last season, we didn't know what we were going into, did we, with that Cardiff game at the start of the season? It was absolute bedlam, wasn't it? And it's like, when we were losing 2-0, weren't we? We were losing 2-0 in that game.
2-0. Yeah, we were 2-0 down. Cooper scored right at the beginning of the second half, and then Somerville equalised. Yeah, later on. I don't think for a second anybody can dispute we've had better preparation this pre-season than last pre-season. Going into that first game, we had no idea what was going on, as you said. We didn't really know what the squad was going to look like. We were still in Nonto started that day, Sinistera started that day, I believe, and definitely played that day. And, they both were obviously behaving the way that they ended up behaving, both of them, for one reason or another. We had others to go out, before the end of that window. We had others to come in. Joe Rodon wasn't part of that squad, who made a major part of the side all season. Not to mention that Farker had a short period of time because of all the sale of the club, Ellen Road, and all that went on with Rajazani and leveraging Ellen Road against the purchase of of Sampdoria, and all of that went on in that summer break. I remember Rasmus Christensen walking through the doors, like popping all over the place and thinking he was the man, and then a day later he walked out and went to Roma on loan. Verber saying that he was going to stay, and then Din, and all this went on within a matter of no time at all. And Farker, to be fair to him, had to kind of wrap all that together really quickly and sort it out. We started that day with Pascal Struijk and Liam Cooper as 2 centre-backs. Something that's never worked at the back. It's never ever worked at the back. We started with Shackleton as one of his first 13 players. He started the week after, and at Ipswich and Birmingham away. All of this matters. All of this matters a lot. And I look, I can understand people saying any team that loses the quality of Archie Gray and Chris Somerville can't be a better team. I disagree. I completely disagree. I think Archie Gray is a generational talent and will go on to be an unbelievable player. But if you're directly comparing what we had with Archie Gray last season as a makeshift right back and Jayden Bogle now as an out and out proper solidified attacking fullback that suits his system, I don't think it's comparable. I think Jayden Bogle is a far better option going into a 46-game championship season at right back than Archie Gray is. He makes our squad better. Somerville is unreplaceable, but we do have the players within the squad to make sure that we don't feel that. The goals have to spread. We've done different things within the team and bringing a Rothwell in to find goals from different areas. The set pieces look better. We've improved in that end. Ampadu going back into the midfield, that's going to improve us. So I 100% believe that this squad right now, with the additions of Aronson and Verber into the side, is a far stronger squad than last season. Way stronger. It's definitely stronger than the start of last season. So, that's how I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, this season has so many parallels to Bielsa's second season. Interested to get your thoughts on this one. Johnny, Parker is the English Farker. Their stats are very similar.
Farker didn't have the squads that Parker had. Daniel Farker built two different versions of that Norwich side. The one that he got promoted first, and then the one that came back down and then got promoted again. Both as champions as well. Not bottling it with an unbelievable squad and then finishing in the playoffs and getting through in the final with an unbelievable squad. He didn't do that. He won the championship both sides with that Norwich side, and he built a squad that played a style of football. Scott Parker both times had an unbelievable squad and failed to get the top two. I don't. Sure, it's comparable that they both got promoted and then failed in the Premier League, if you want to say it as blanket as that. But I don't think it's the same personally.
Yeah. Ryan, I've always said that people need to go look at the team that played Birmingham away. Jason, I remember that. We did the review, didn't we? And that was a scary day, wasn't it? That was like Shackleton on the right wing, and it was a mess. Shackleton on the wing. It was just like, where are we at right now?
We were unfortunate not to get something out of that game that day because the game was terrible. Birmingham ended up countering. Dan James got really unlucky, fouled him outside the box as well, and ended up giving us a penalty 92nd minute. Like it was just one of them days. But I remember us coming on stream after that, and we were very much looking at each other like, this team will be looking at finishing the top half. We were, and that's the kind of position that we were in. We didn't win in the first four, were it?
No.
Drew Cardiff, lost to Birmingham. I think there were another game before the Ipswich game that we ended up drawing as well. I can't remember what it was, but I'm pretty sure it was his fourth game that we won. Yeah. So, the start of last season were a bit messy, wasn't it? So
yeah, absolutely. Just having a look and you brought up about Willie Gnonto and where he is 12 months on. We were at the cup game. And, the transfer request kind of came out, didn't it? The news as we were walking to the car back. It was like, Gnonto's putting a transfer request. Like, oh, great. 12 months on, it's a huge opportunity for Willie to take that position on the left, the Somerville position, really, where I think he does his best work. It's going to be interesting because, I mean, he's the one who just can't get away, can he, really? He might dream of the Premier League, but he's the only one who signed under Radrizzani. There's no release clause for him, the poor bugger. I didn't think it was great against Valencia, I've got to say. Look, it's only a pre-season match. It's not, you can't read too much into it. I think he will improve, but I think the thing with Nonto, it kind of seems like he takes a while to kind of get going into his stride. Once he's in his stride, wow, his ceiling, we know, is like a lot higher than, say, James, for example, but kind of need him to be kind of off the mark, don't we? If he's going to take that role and it's going to be his, we need him to be kind of on fire straight away. I thought against Valencia he was not quite on it, and you wonder how his best mate, Cree, leaving the club and this kind of thing is going to play into it as well. And maybe he's still a little bit unsettled. I don't know. But, we need, if we've lost some of it, we need him to kind of step up, don't we, really, now and kind of be that player we know he can be.
Yeah, I think he's probably had to have matured over this last 12 months. I think Danny Fackel's kind of alluding to it, that they made a stand last year to say, we're not going to be messed around with. If you're going to behave like this, you're going to be out of the squad. We're going to reintegrate you in, but we don't have to sell you, so we're not going to sell you. It was clear that Nonto was one of the players that he was talking about. Yeah. Nonto did then reintegrate back in. I think he's petulant. I still think he's, immature at times, and he's still building into being the full professional that he needs to be. But he's clearly a talented lad. But the great, if the signing of Johnny Rowe goes through, especially, we are going to be able to drop him. We are going to be able to say, well, look, Willie, you're not at it. You're going to be sitting on the bench. You're going to be riding the bench. Even without Rowe coming in, Brendan Aronson, Gio Rutter, Dan James, they're all going to be vying for them spots. It's 4 into 2, innit? So somebody's going to have to be dropped. I mean, you could argue at 10. Could he play at 10? Who's going to play at 10? That's another question, There's loads of competition for places in them positions. So, but yeah, he could make the difference, and he can make the difference for himself. He can get that move, that big move. If we go up or if we don't go up, he could really attract some teams to be looking at him if he can step up and take that mantle of being the replacement for Cree Somerville. I think there is a world in which we will look a little bit better without such a heavy focus on one man. Yeah. I do think there is and I think we do that a little bit anyway through Rutter, but last season it was funneled to Somerville because he was the man that was going to get the goals or get the assists. Hopefully between that kind of combination that we've got behind Joseph, and if Joseph ends up being the main man that ends up sticking 25 away, then great. But in the build-up to get it there, hopefully it's not going to feel quite as funneled this season. And again, I think Jayden Bogle gives us that balance. And hopefully Nonto will then be able to kind of step up, take on extra responsibility, but not be weighed down by the pressure of being the only man that goes and does it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, if we've seen what we think is going to be the starting 11 against Valencia last weekend, I mean, what did you think of the performance? I think I'm less impressed than what a lot of people were.
I thought first half was excellent.
I wasn't kind of blown away. I was kind of watching Ampadu and Gruev in midfield together. I feel like that's a little bit too. I don't know.
I thought first half was excellent. We absolutely dominated the game. We made them look silly, which is why they ended up behaving the way that they did. They had no choice second half but to kind of equalise what we were doing out by just kicking us in the air and free kicks and slowing the game down and whatnot. But first half, I thought we moved the ball really well. I thought Gruev got into more advanced positions. I thought Ampadu slipped into the back three and made a nice variation, so then we could push the fullbacks up wide. I thought Firpo inverted in nicely to give us an outlay. I thought it was really good again, Junior Firpo. I thought he played really, really well. I thought you could see what we were trying to do with Bogle down that right-hand side. Joe Rodon were a bit sloppy with some of his passes, which ended up giving the ball back to them for throw-ins a lot early. But that side, you could see the build-up there. I thought Gio Rutter was just at it. He was just having fun all game. Joseph's movement. I mean, the first goal, Firpo obviously brings it in, and then that little touch in behind the back line that Rutter makes for Joseph. forgetting the finish was great, but the pass and that run, we didn't see that all season. We literally didn't see it all season. The only moment that I can think of was the counter-attack goal that Pirro scored against Millwall.
Yes.
Where we won the ball on the edge. It could have been a foul. I didn't think it was. And we broke quickly, and Pirro was played in behind, and he slotted a good finish away. That's the only goal I can think of that looks like that. And Joseph makes that happen, and Rutter makes that happen because he plays in between them lines really, really well. So, yeah, I was really impressed with the first half, mate. You've got to bear in mind the opposition too. You know, Valencia finished 9th in La Liga last season. They're no mugs. They're not the team that they used to be, but they're absolutely no mugs, and we made them look like mugs. So, and then second half, I don't think you can read too much into it. Like I said, they were doing what they were doing, and then we started making a lot of changes. You know, by the end of the game, there were about 6 kids on the pitch. So,
you've got to factor that in, haven't you? Ryan, you could also argue that Valencia team is the strongest team we'll play all season, and we made them look.
Agree completely.
Yeah. Do you think then that starting 11 that we saw at Valencia, do you think that's going to be the starting against Portsmouth, or do you think there may be?
I think Rothwell comes in.
Who
I think
for
Gruev.
Right.
I think Portsmouth at home is a Rothwell game.
Yes.
And a Burnley away is a Gruev game. I think you'll see plenty of both all season. And unless one of them comes in and just stakes the claim that they cannot be dropped, which is unusual for either of them kind of players. You know, they're not a Rutter or a Somerville or a Nonto or a Joseph or whatever, where they can't be brought out in squad rotation because the game suits a different player better, especially in a key area like midfield. I mean, Portsmouth might come out as, I have a feeling that they probably will opening day of the season. They're going to want to play a bit. They're not a sit-back kind of team. But as standardly goes, they will be that kind of team, you know, a Stoke at home or Millwall at home. These teams that are going to probably try and low blockers, Joe Rothwell will be the man, I think, in them games over Gruev.
Do you think someone like him is going to be the difference for that? I mean, we said, you know, the number of points we dropped against like bottom 6 clubs, it was astonishing, really, wasn't it? When you consider that we battered Ipswich twice and beat Leicester twice, and you know, all the top end ones, probably bar Southampton, we got the better of. And then against the bottom 6, we really struggled. Do you think it's kind of, you know, someone that lot pick like a Rothwell who can just, you know, he's got that brain, as in that forward thinking? Is that going to be the difference in those type of games, you think, Jason, that could just switch it over?
I definitely think he's got a lot to contribute. I think he gives us more than Kamara going forward, who now looks like he's going to be his direct replacement. So, yeah, I hope so. I like the way that he moves the ball quicker. He moves the ball at speed. He's very good in tight spots. I'm really impressed by him, if I'm honest. I thought he was going to be a real run-of-the-mill kind of squad player that would fill in here and there. He's really impressed me. He's not particularly rapid in that area of the pitch, but his speed of thought is really, really underrated. And when he's on the ball, I think technically he's really, really good. So yeah, I'm super excited to see him. I think we've looked better during preseason when he's been on the pitch than when he's not been on the pitch. I think we are far slower when Gruev is in that position instead. I understand that they both bring different qualities. So, but yeah, I hope so. I hope it can change games when we maybe do start a little bit more negative or passive with Gruev. He can come on and change them games, or he can be the man that does unlock them picks, and then, you know, we can sit back with a Gruev later in the game. So yeah, I hope so. And I think there might be another signing to do that there yet. I do. I
was going to say, I mean, would you like to see another player in that kind of area of the pitch? I mean, the kind of central midfield kind of area, you know, even all the way up to kind of the 10 position. I think there could be something done. I'd like to see another body in there. It does get difficult though, doesn't it, Jason? Because I mean, you know, you can't have too many players sitting around not playing, can you? Either, you know, we saw with like the likes of Jadon Anthony, and look, we got rid of a load of squad players this summer. You know, you don't want to pile it back on, but it feels like, you know, if, you know, an Ampadu or Gruev gets injured, and then, you know, something, you know, it's feasible that, you know, you have a couple of players injured in your midfield at some point, you know, and then what do you do?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you have to be realistic with your squad size, because otherwise it becomes too bloated, and you've got players that are sat around that are getting unhappy, that are not playing any football, and especially dependent on the position. I made the point before we started about the centre back situation. You can't just go and sign another first choice fourth position centre back. Yeah, you just can't. So James DeBio is an absolute fantastic option to have there. Danny Farker trusts him, but he's not going to be unhappy that he's not playing, because he's understanding his position in the pecking order right now. We've already got an Austrian international that's not going to start on Saturday. Like, what more do you want? But in them positions which can be a bit more flexible, where you can stake a claim to start games based on impact in games. So, like a Dan James who might get 20 minutes, come on, score. You can have a few more of them because they get opportunities in games. You don't make a change at centre-back to change a game, do you? Very rarely, you know what I mean? Same as left-back, Junior Firpo, if he's fit all season, no matter who we sign as a backup left-back option, he's probably just going to sit on the bench all season. So you can't just sign another first-choice left-back to just sit on the bench. You have to then hope that Junior Firpo, first off, doesn't get injured, and then second, if he does, it's only a matter of weeks to which Verba can step in at left back. Yeah. Or Gruev could step in at left back, or Struijk could step in at left back. There's options within the squad to cover it. But in the midfield, I think we are probably one short right now. I would argue it is the only position where we are really short. And I do think we'll end up replacing Somerville. But I would argue that really now, on paper, we don't need to. We have Brendan Aronson, Dan James, Gio Rutter, and Willie Nonto, who all can play in that position. So signing another, you're giving 3 positions, effectively 5 players that can play in them. Maybe even only 2 positions, because I would argue that a few of them are not 10s. No. So it's a real difficult conundrum to get right. Ryan's made the point there about centre midfield. Ampadu, Gruev, Rothwell, and Crew is enough for centre midfield. I think that's a little bit short-sighted. Because there's times where Ampadu could end up playing centre-back because we need somebody filling in there, injury, suspensions, depending. Gruev and Rothwell, would you be happy going for the title with them two as your centre midfielders? I would argue not. Chris, I know he's been a little bit tongue-in-cheek, and he's been saying what he's been saying about Rothwell throughout all of pre-season, and he's maintained it. And I actually felt exactly the same as this before seeing him play. But it could be right. Once the season starts, is Joe Rothwell a title-winning championship starter week in, week out? There's an argument to say that it's probably not. So there is, I think, a gap there. Crew, he is such a prospect. He is, but is he ready to start the amount of games that Archie Gray played last season? No, he's not. But I think a lot of fans have got it into the red that he is the direct replacement. He's going to play 50 games in the championship. If Archie can do it, Charlie Crew can do it. That don't work for me. That's not the way that it is. I would love to see him, make substitution appearances in 15, 20 games this season, maybe even a couple of starts here or there, starting the cup, no problem. But I don't think he's at that level. Archie's a one-off, So I would really like to see us sign an 8 into a 10, one of them.
Yeah,
personally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting because I kind of looking at that performance on Saturday, and obviously, again, reiterate pre-season, you can't read too much into it. I didn't look at it and go, God, we're really missing Somerville out there. When you see Gio and what he's got to offer, and when you're looking at Joseph, who is this kind of new entity for us now, where we've just not had what he can give us. You're looking at it going, and possibly with Gio being a bit more complete this season, we might have the answers there, and I agree. I'm not desperate to see a Somerville replacement come in, to be honest. I absolutely agree with you totally.
It'd be hard for a lot of fans, maybe more outside of the Leeds sphere, to kind of understand why I would say this, but I don't think we'll miss him as much as what people think we will. I'm not like, when he went, I weren't even that gutted. I fully expected it.
Yeah. I was saying. Yeah.
And I can totally and utterly see how this side can look to improve and not depend on that left side as much, especially with the signing of Jayden Bogle. Jayden Bogle, for me, is the best signing that we've made this window by an absolute mile. And I think no matter who comes in, he still will be. For £5 million, we've got the best attacking right back in the division. And he just changes the dynamic of that right-hand side. I said to you several times, as great as Archie was last season, he hampered us at times in that fullback position because he's not a fullback. He never got to the byline. He never hugged the touch line quite the same as an out-and-out fullback would. He would look to invert and come inside a lot. And that funneled a lot of the attacking side of the game down the left-hand side. Firpo overlapping Somerville cutting inside, Somerville shooting, or Somerville passing to Firpo. It became very, very predictable. Yeah. So I think having that variation over the whole side is going to be massively more important than just having an out-and-out man like Somerville. It did irritate me at times watching the ball just get funneled to Somerville. Whether that was instructional or whether it was just what the players did out there on the pitch, I don't know. Maybe it just became a bit of a crutch. I don't think they have that this season. I think there's equal responsibility, and Gio's going to be the man to kind of knit it all together.
I mean, well, let's talk a little bit about Gio, because I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, he's a special player, special person as well, isn't he? Really, he's just, me and Jason were chatting about it earlier. If you've not seen it, he's got a YouTube channel, and he's kind of released this kind of like question and answer kind of mini documentary thing where he's kind of reflecting on his career. And he seems like such a heartfelt guy. We know he's like a fun guy. The club uses him loads, obviously. I mean, the Flamingo Land thing, and he's on a roller coaster screaming, and he's just he's that personality, isn't he, Jason? And I agree with you about Somerville. It's like when he left, it was like he's been a brilliant player last season for us, and he's been at the club, 4 years or so. But it did feel like, okay, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. If we lost Rutter, I've got to say, I would be absolutely gutted, really. I mean, he was the player last season that kind of, and I've talked about this before, but after being relegated and kind of watching how miserable the football was for, nearly 2 years, he was the one who kind of brought the fun back and brought the spark back more than Somerville. I mean, Somerville was kind of, it was goals, it was assists, it was like, that kind of, Gio, it's like little flicks and tricks, and it's that stuff that, when you're a kid growing up, that's what you kind of respond to most, those exciting players. And you just don't. I mean, how many players do you see like Gio Rutter in the league, in any league, not just championship level? Where there's very few and far between.
It is an absolute joy to watch, mate. Yeah. I mean, he is. I would be absolutely crestfallen if he was to go. I really would. He would be the one that hurt the most, probably since Rafinha. And even when Rafinha went, I expected it. We all expected the Barcelona move to happen. But yeah, Gio certainly last season brought the fun back. I've had the pleasure of meeting him just in passing in the reception at Thorpe Arch, and he's exactly like what you see in person. Literally, he were chatting to one at reception staff, and he's larking about. He's talking about being back at France, and everything is dead excited and passionate. He's exactly the same. It's literally just like, and it were only a 5-minute interaction. You know what I mean? But it's just nice to see that kind of fun-loving character on the pitch. And, the little documentary that he did, it clearly showed him that he really struggled with what went on, as you would expect for a 20-year-old lad. And, he made the decision to stay. I think he probably had options to go. Last season, he could have kicked and screamed. He didn't. He made peace with playing a season in the Championship. And it looks like he's probably made the peace in staying another season in the Championship because, he loves the club. He feels at home. He's playing. It's really clear to him through that short documentary that it was important, that he felt important and part of the team and like he could play. The reason that he left Stade Rennes, which was his boyhood club, he weren't getting opportunities to play. So he went to move to Germany. And his dream was to play in the Premier League and play in England. And he achieved that with us, albeit fleetingly. And now he wants to get us back there. And like you say, mate, it's just so much fun to watch. And I mean, I know it's a wild comparison, but he is an Adel Taarabt but with the attitude. He's got the right attitude. He will do the dirty stuff as well. He'll track back. He'll work hard for his team. He'll support his teammates. He wants to help others. Whereas Taarabt was very much just a case of, look at how good I am, and Gio's got that, but he's not got it to the same kind of arrogance, I suppose, as a young Taarabt. But that's what he's like. His technical ability on the ball. I mean, the amount of times that it looks like he's going to lose it, and he manages to just dink past another one or jerk past another. He's just ridiculous. He's just such a good player, and I hope that we get to enjoy him for another 2, 3, 4 years. I'd love to see him have a full crack at the Premier League with us.
Yeah,
I really would. I think he'd really set it alight. I think he'd deserve it. I think he's a bit of composure away from being literally top elite level. I can see him playing for a Madrid. Yeah. Like, I can see him playing for the very, very best. He just has to get that composure and get the goals to return on how many big chances he gets, because he does get an unbelievable amount of chances. So,
well, when I was watching him on Saturday, it was the type of player where there's audible gasps everywhere from where he sat. I mean, he was on our wing. He was playing on the right wing second half, cutting in on his left. And it was just time and time again, beating his man. Phenomenal, and we were just sat there, and everybody was just like, he is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I think it's this. Obviously, he had that hernia operation, I think it was, and he came back and he was clearly not at it 100% like he had been. And I almost feel like some people probably kind of start to take his kind of, his genius or whatever for granted a bit, didn't they? It was like, well, why isn't he kind of doing that all the time, every single game? It's like, well. Let's if guys had a hernia op, for God's sake, like, give him some time. The thing that's the worry, Jason, and this is the big question. I asked Nancy about it on our show yesterday. If you've not seen that, check that out. That's The Athletics, Nancy Froston, and she's asked the club directly, is there a release clause situation with Rutter? And they're not saying there isn't, and that's obviously going to be a concern for all Leeds fans, because, clubs can get desperate. We know Brighton have had a nibble already. And if he has a great game on Saturday, if he's banging the goals in as well in August, I mean, I do feel if we were to lose Rutter, you're losing that, like you say, that Tarap factor, right? You're losing that X factor that just takes you up another level. You just hope that we can just get to the end of the transfer window. He's still there, because he might be enough in that forward line, because he's just so good. If
he's irreplaceable. He's irreplaceable. Whereas Somerville, anyone else, even Archie, they're all replaceable. To a championship standard that can give you the same kind of levels that you need because of the players that you're playing against. Gio Rutter's completely irreplaceable. You cannot find another player that would be prepared to just join a championship club that looks and plays like him, that has the technical ability that he has. As for the window and the transfer release clause and all this, the one thing I will say is that, and this is just a simple fact of missing out on promotion, being a championship club, is that while you are at this level, you are always at the mercy of somebody coming and taking one of your best players, especially if you're a good team. We were arguably the second or third best team in the division. We ended up being the third best team in the division because of the start that we had, or because of Ipswich having a madness, or whatever the reason that you want to say, right? But we were one of the best in the division last season. And the facts are is that our players are going to be of an attractive proposition for other clubs. Not only have they shown to being able to play to that high of a standard, but they've shown that they've been able to do it at Ellen Road in front of 36,000 for a whole season when the pressure is on. And that matters. It makes a big difference doing that for Leeds United at Ellen Road over doing it for whoever, Stoke, or Blackburn, whoever. Look at the situation with Schmodix. Nobody's really wanting to spend the money that is needed on Schmodix right now. Yeah. Why is that? You could argue that him and Rutter both one season wonders as it stands. Well, Schmodix is available for 12 million quid and nobody wants to touch him. And I know that Rutter's a lot younger, but it still it makes a difference. Doing it in a relegation threatened team for Blackburn is very different to doing it for Leeds United. So yeah, I just hope we can get to the end of the window, mate. But I wouldn't be surprised if something happens. I think Rutter. I think it's likely that there's probably a release clause. I would argue that it has to be at least 40 million. We paid 35 for him, so it can't be much less, if any less than that. And what I would say is that if we're led to believe it's true that Brighton paid 30 million, well, if the release clause was 35, they'd know about it. So are you telling me that they won't squeeze another 5 million? They'd probably be a bit like this about squeezing another 10, but another 5, and I'm not sure. So I'd be hopeful that any club would be a bit worried about spending 40 million on him right now.
Yeah.
We can just get to the end of the window. Nonto, I think what's saving us there is the Zurich clause. 30% of, 23 million is a fair chunk. It leaves us with about 16 or whatever. We value him probably at 25 million that comes to us. So we're in a position where we're like, well, no, because we've got to make sure that we get to us what we feel like is worth, regardless of the 30%. So, yeah, I still feel like there might be one.
Yeah,
That's
hanging over, isn't it? It's like the axe ready to just drop, isn't it? Like who's going to go? I mean, another one, links again. I mean, Farke was pretty emphatic about him, Max Ferber, who, it's difficult. I mean, he got booed on Saturday against Valencia. There's links coming out about, teams having nibbles for him still. Farke pretty emphatic in the presser today, though, Jason, saying that, he spoke to Max, and especially after the camp in Germany, it seems that Verber is fully committed on board. We heard that 12 months ago, though, so we don't know how much we can rely on it. But, something like that, could something happen there again, and it's so difficult. I just can't wait for this window to be shut, to be honest.
Again, more replaceable. If we get 12 million quid for Verber, we could go out and replace him with a third choice centre back for 3 million. I really hope that we keep Verber, because I'm gonna die on this hill, but I think he's better than Pascal. I do. I think he's an Austrian international that has got a lot to his game. I think his distribution's really good. I think his game, the reading of the game is really, really good. But yeah, he's going to be at the mercy of some transfers. The story that Daniel Farke led to us today, and he told us that there was this interaction where Verber asked if he could come into his office and basically said to him, I've seen enough to now decide that I want to stay. I want to be a part of this. I want to prove myself. Ryan's put there that he think he's been humbled. I don't know about that, because I think Mönchengladbach wanted to sign him. They just can't afford him. And that goes for a lot of world football now. They're struggling to come up with these transfer fees, especially in Germany and Italy. They're really struggling to command the resources needed to make some of these deals happen. We pay 10 million for Verber, so we're not going to about to sell him for any less than that. But not when he's held his value. He's just been to the Euros and had a good season in the Bundesliga, so it makes sense to keep him. For me, and again, some people are not going to like this, but I just think you're daft to boo one of your own players. Like when Nonto came back into the side after refusing to play, transfer requests and all that. I get it. I get that. We booed him. We made the flags with the crybaby on and all the rest of it. He reintegrated back in. He scored a goal, and everybody just pretended like it never happened again. And everybody was then singing his name, right? And he then earned the right to have that kind of support back. I see Verber and Aronson exactly the same as that position. They've both come back in. They've both now said, I want to be part of this. Yeah, like whether they've got other options or not is irrelevant. That's what they're saying, and that's what they are now showing by playing for Leeds United. Coming back on at Ellen Road can't have been easy the other day, especially for Max. Yeah, and I'm not saying it should be a boo-hoo, cry him. Yeah, but the facts are is that he has come back. He is wanting to do his best for Leeds United. What is productive about booing them? I just don't get it. If he now came out and said, I'm putting in a transfer request, and Daniel Farke brought him onto the pitch, fine. That makes sense, boo him. But right now, that's not the position that we're in. We're in a position where he's saying he wants to do his best for Leeds United. So there is
boo.
Yeah. If you support your club, surely you support the players that pull on the shirt. So yeah, I just don't get it. And I like I say, he's such a good player at this level. We've seen what the likes of Junior Firpo and Dan James have been able to do stepping down to the Championship. This is a Bundesliga in his prime centre back.
Isn't it?
It's a non-brainer if we can get the best out of him that we'd want to get the best out of him.
I was thinking about this earlier. I was like, who's better out of Wöber and Struijk? And I could see a world in which Struijk starts, but Wöber overtakes him at some point. You know, whether it's a little injury that Struijk has or 100%. Something, and I could absolutely see Wöber come in and actually take that position over, because, like you say, he's in the prime and he is a good player. There's, you know, and especially at this level.
A lot of people don't want to face them facts, Browney, because Pascal was a Bielsa babe, and you know he's never done anything to rock the boat. And you know, don't get me wrong, he's a good centre back, but he kind of carries himself in the way of a Leeds United player. But if you take away all the emotion and you're just left with the two players, I'm sorry, but Wöber's a better defender. He's Absolutely. A better player. Pascal Struijk would have not, if he were fully fit at the end of last season, he would have not gone and played in the Euros for Austria if he was Austrian. Yeah. You know what I mean? He wouldn't, because he's not as good as him. It's as simple as that. Like, I had somebody arguing with me the other day that Pascal's distribution was way better than Wöber's. I'm like, what are you looking at? Like, I'm not being horrible, but I know Pascal's an okay ball playing centre back, but he's not. And I'm watching the Valencia game, and I was watching it with a bit of a thought to this comment and thinking, am I missing it? Like, and I don't believe like I miss that kind of thing very often. And Pascal didn't make a single real pass out the back line. He gave it to Ampadu, and Ampadu did it. You know what I mean? Wöber can do that. Wöber, he's a bit cumbersome, is Wöber. He looks a bit awkward at times. Yeah. His running motion looks a bit awkward. But that shouldn't then mean that he gets kind of chastised for the rest of his game. His game reading is way better than Pascal. His concentration levels are way better than Pascal's. Pascal is so prone to switching off.
Yeah, he is.
He just is. So, you know, Nipper makes a point that it would make a good back three. I was really hopeful that when we saw the formation at Harrogate that we were going to go into that back three, because I thought, well, that's the only way that it really makes sense. If all three are available, we'll play the three of them, and then the full-backs will become even more important as wing-backs. But it don't look like that's going to be the case. It looks like it's going to be 2 into 3. So,
I mean, if we could go back a year, though, Struijk was in a pretty bad place after the Premier League campaign. Fans were happy to see him go. Fans were like, "Oh, sell him." You know, because he was appalling in the Premier League that end of that season. You know, that kind of last 6 months, he was. You know, I remember do you remember the cup game against Cardiff? And he was terrible.
Yeah, he was
absolutely terrible. He made mistake after mistake, and it just, you know, and
I would say, with the exception of Meslier, he's the one that was hit the worst for a crisis of confidence by the Premier League batterings.
Yeah.
Pascal looked an absolute shell. I mean, the stint that he did at left back was just brutal. Because then when he went back into centre back, you're right, I think it was the Cardiff Cup game, he came back in and played centre back, and he was absolutely awful. Like I said, I think his concentration levels were a real problem. I do think before he got his injury last season at the end of the year, I thought he really tried to carry the team. There were some games where he was the man that was really trying to step up. He obviously had the armband. I remember him taking that penalty away at Preston when we were down to 10 men, and he was like, "No, I'm the man. I'm going to look after my team." And he took the penalty with such confidence, and I was starting to think he's really stepping up as a man, as a player, as a leader. And then he unfortunately got the injury, so we never know. And then we do kind of put it together with the upturning form. I was very vocal that we looked better building out from the back with him and Purdue at centre-back, because he was deep playing playmaker. He's so much better on the ball than Struijk. He's not a better defender, but he's better on the ball. And then I think that's kind of clouded the position that we now all feel around Pascal. But maybe that is just a reality, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Some comments to get to here. Ryan, transfer window being open after the season starts is a joke. Digler, I thought Scum or Liverpool would have tried to sign Rutter. Ryan, I think Wöber is being humbled. Fact, talking about the Wöber coming into his office puts a lot of pressure on him to stay. Chris, the deadline day live stream is going to be so bloody interesting this season. Oh my God, are we doing it again, Chris? Are we going to do that? Come on, here we go. I know, all night. Yeah, just the 5 hours, 5 or 6 hours, nothing too heavy. Digler, I understand why they want to boo Wöber, but those fans need to control their emotions because it will be detrimental to the team's performances. Nipper here. Do you think he might switch to a back three in the future? I don't know. I mean, like Jason touched on there, you thought, oh, maybe this is. That's where I would have been like, we need another left wing back. I think if we were doing 3-5-2, I wouldn't wanted to see Struijk or Verber as like left wing back options or pulling out like a right footer to there. I wouldn't have liked to have seen that, but I don't. I think that we might see that formation. Who knows a little bit, but we'll see.
The problem with the 3-5-2, I don't think Rodon suits it. I don't think Rodon suits it at all, and I think you saw
with his passing against Valencia. Christ.
And I think you saw exactly the same against Harrogate. When Rodon tried to pass it out from the back, he was giving the ball away a lot, and then he ended up giving it to Ampadu, who was playing right centre back. So I don't. Now in hindsight, I just don't think we'll end up seeing that.
No, I agree. Chris, yeah, we have to. It was an absolute belter last summer in January. Yeah, it was a laugh to be fair. There,
that Sinistera bloody Jadon Anthony deadline day was horrendous. Like, we were ready to go to bed at whatever it was, 12 o'clock, and we had to do it. It stayed up till about 1:30 to see it happen, didn't we? It was ridiculous.
Oh, painful, absolutely painful. Just kind of, on about transfers and everything. Something that's kind of, I don't know, building up a little bit of kind of head of steam on, especially on Twitter, when how these things go, is a very, very active Sheffield United, and I've seen you've been getting into it with fans on Twitter as well, which has been entertainment, mate. But I mean, just looking at some of the signings that Sheffield United have made: Harrison Burrows, Kiefer Moore, Callum O'Hare, Jamie Shackleton, Harry Souttar, Alfie Gilchrist, Sam Kurz. I mean, they've kind of, they seem to be pushing the boat out. They're getting the lad from Crystal Palace apparently as well. That's close. Are you at all not worried, but are you just kind of, I don't know. It's strange.
Chris is on another planet tonight.
Let's have a look. What's he saying? I've had the best.
Honestly, there couldn't be any more football management signings if I've ever heard of them. I mean, their squad was an absolute mess, I think. Obviously lost a lot of players. I don't think they'll be anywhere near the top two. I think they couldn't have signed any more championship level players if they'd have tried. And I think most of them are in and around 6th to 10th. I just don't see it. I think Harry Souttar was obviously well thought of in the Championship, stepped up to Premier League and was horrendous, and ended up back on loan in the Championship again. So he's now at the Championship level. Callum O'Hare has had a bad injury. He's now stepped up from Coventry to Sheffield United. But I would argue that Coventry and Sheffield United are probably going to be on the similar kind of level this season. Coventry were in and around the playoffs last season. I expect Sheffield United to be in and around the playoffs again. So has he, I don't get it. Like, he clearly had a fancy from Leicester. Leicester are expected to be in a relegation battle this season. They didn't sign him. So is it that great of a signing? Kiefer Moore, it's a Championship striker. Would you want him over Matteo Joseph Browney? No. Would you take him over Bamford if you knew Bamford were going to be fit all season? I would probably say no. If I'm honest. I can go on. I think Harrison Burrows is a good signing. I think there's a real potential there. But again, can he step up to the Championship? Who knows? We don't know that. He's a League One player right now. Tyrese Campbell. He weren't pulling up mad trees at Stoke. No. I don't get it. I don't get this hysteria to some of these signings. At the moment, they've kept hold of Hamer, who I think is a great player. I think is an absolute unbelievable player at Championship. Do I think he'll be here or be there at the end of the window? No. He's got a relegation release clause for a top division team to take him. I think that'll get activated by somebody. It's rumoured to be around 15 million quid. So what have they done? And then sorry, I'm adding Jamie Shackleton to it. Okay, nice one. I don't get it, Brownie. I don't understand this kind of logic towards the signings. And I think a lot of what Sheffield United will or won't do depends on what Chris Wilder's got left. Because I think he rode a crest of a wave with that Sheffield United team the first time around, got them to the Premier League, did what they did. Once the wheels started to come off, we've seen a different version of Chris Wilder through his fallout with Sheffield United the first time, through his employment at Middlesbrough, and then he was somewhere else as well, right?
With the God, where else was Chris
He went
Wilder?
to a relegation.
Really
he went to a relegation candidate nutcase club. I just can't think who it was now.
Is it QPR for a little bit of time?
I can't remember.
Or Watford.
Watford, that's it. Yeah, I
Watford.
said a basket case club. Yeah, so he had the stint there, which that went to shit, and then he's come back to Sheffield United, and everything that he's kind of said and done in and around Sheffield United since he's been back, I think has looked a bit weird. Like some of the stuff he comes out with and the things that he came out with in the Premier League. I mean, people were taking piss out of him a few months ago for some of the comments he were coming out with. Then this Jayden Bogle interview, and he's not changing. And I think if he carries on into this season like that, I think he'll be sacked by November. I do. I think he'll be under a lot of pressure, Wilder.
Yeah, Ryan, Sheffield Wednesday will finish above Sheffield United.
I agree.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, looking at kind of the other teams in and around, obviously we know, Burnley, they've lost Vincent Kompany, as we mentioned at the start. They've got Scott Parker in there, experienced. I think they've signed Mike Trezor. They've got Esteve, who's a French under-21 defender. They're going to be a problem, aren't they, Burnley? We know that they potentially they could be a big hurdle for Leeds to. But I mean, it's definitely no bigger or more concern than Leicester or Southampton were last year.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's nothing else really to say on that. I think Burnley will be, one of the contenders. I would imagine that they'll be right up there. They may even beat us in a game, or maybe even both this season. Who knows? I think there will be a problem, but they are definitely not to the levels of, I would even argue, Leicester or Southampton last season.
Yeah,
I think Southampton, were probably a little bit. They underwhelmed a little bit during the season, and ended up obviously getting promoted. But I think on paper their side was unbelievable.
Yeah,
I don't think that Burnley side is the same as that, and I think Luton are just so championship ready. I think that them as in the ground, Rob Edwards, everything that kind of the fan base and that club just kind of transcends. I think they will do really well this season. I think it'll feel good for them to kind of step down and be competing against players more on their level week in, week out. They will feel so much more comfortable with the games week in, week out in comparison to Premier League week in, week out. And they were brilliant. They ultimately failed by a long way in terms of finishing 17th last season, but they were excellent. They really, they showed themselves in a proper light in there. They've got some good players. Then the keeper's great. Carlton Morris is a handful. I think Andros Townsend has stayed there, and I think he'll be excellent next season. And Alfie Doughty's still there. They've got some real players. So
yeah, absolutely. What do you think about someone like a team like Middlesbrough? I mean, you look in there and they've got, Michael Carrick third season. They've kept, obviously Latilath. They've got Sonny Dieng, Van der Berg still. They've got some talent, haven't they?
They are the team that I've actually put down to finish fourth. I can see Chris just sitting at the bottom.
We get him in. Come on, look at him.
I mean, he doesn't deserve to come in, really. I think he should just sit there.
He's been waiting in the wings for a while. He's been very active in the chat. Let's get on our esteemed colleague, Mr. Christopher Bell. What are you doing, my friend?
I've been enjoying the stream, to be honest, gents. It's been a good watch.
Well, welcome along. You've shared and been let known your opinions on certain things, haven't you? So, what's on your mind, my friend?
No, I just thought I would join this because it's nice to hear you talk about other clubs than Leeds for a change. So
I mean, we're still talking about Leeds, Chris. If you're coming in to interrupt us talking about Leeds, then you best leave.
No. I heard you talk about Middlesbrough. To be fair, and I thought that I was just intrigued to see where you're going to go with the other clubs because the way that we've been talking over the last few weeks. I mean, what was it you said today to me, Jay? You're the famous Leeds United and you're going to win the league.
Yeah, look.
I just don't see it myself just yet. I don't think it's cut and dry. I think there's too many other possibilities out there.
I think this squad is by far the strongest squad in the division. But by far. Right now, we're sat with a bench of either Dan James or Willie Gnonto, right? Brendan Aronson, Max Verber, Joe Rothwell, the bench from the Valencia game, Brownie, you might remember it more than
Yeah.
me, but the 5 or 6 there that were on Sam Byron was on the bench as well. That is an unbelievable championship bench. And last season, that is what really lost us. Certainly in the running, was having the ability to be able to change games, being able to look to the bench and have depth to change the game. Right now, we've got a situation where Mateo Joseph's going to start the game, and we're going to have Joel Perreault and Patrick Bamford on the bench as our backup strikers.
Is Joseph going to be the answer, though?
It's going to be the answer,
We've talked about this, but I mean, I put in one of my comments earlier on that I don't think you showed it at the time, but for me, you're still an out-and-out like top-class striker away, because there's a lot of what ifs with Joseph. Yes, he's good and he's a prospect. I appreciate that. But what if it doesn't work? You're then stuck with Bamford and Perreault, which, don't get me wrong, aren't bad, but wasn't the answer last season either, really. I still feel like you're a striker that fits the system away, in the sense that Perreault was a great signing last summer on paper. Turned out he didn't quite fit the system.
Everything we've seen of Joseph from pre-season shows that he's ready. And we can only really go off that, can't we, Brandon? I mean, obviously, we had instances last season, the Chelsea game. We've seen what he's capable of. I think Daniel Farke's in full belief that he's the man to lead the line now. And then what I will say is, because there will be downturns for a 20, 21-year-old striker throughout the season, you're still looking at a striker in Joel Perreault that scored 15 goals last season. And if that doesn't work, you're looking at Patrick Bamford, who's, still very, very capable at this level. I don't want him to see him starting week in, week out. But Patrick Bamford, a fully fit Patrick Bamford in the Championship is a problem. He's still a top player. There ain't another team in the division that wouldn't take him as part of their squad. I don't believe it. Maybe Burnley. Yeah. But are you telling me that Luton will want him as backup to Carlton Morris? Of course they would.
I just don't know if I get the Bamford hype nowadays. He's just with injury issues, and I just don't think he's not what he was 2 years ago. And I think other clubs have probably got better strikers now that they could afford to say, you know what, we probably would pass on Bamford.
I don't know. I don't think you can. The thing is, the problem is if you buy another striker and you put another striker in that pecking order, I don't know. I think you're gonna have some.
Don't get me wrong. Someone ends up unhappy there, don't they? If you add another striker into the mix, that's true. But I guess where I'm going with this is it Bamford's time to? Is he actually going to be enough like those three?
Chris, I don't think it matters, because I don't think we'll see much of Bamford this year anyway. I think if Joseph does end up coming out of the team for whatever reason, Perreault will be the man to come in. I think there'll be a time where you might even see Gio Rutter start there, and you'll see a combination of Dan James, Willie Notto, and Brendan Aronson in behind him. I don't think you'll see a lot of him. But I've got the rankings list that I created before coming on tonight. After Luton and Burnley, I could maybe understand the Luton and Burnley. Middlesbrough have just signed Bergzorg from, who was at Huddersfield?
Is that right? Have they? I didn't even know that.
To be fair, that happened.
It happened weeks ago. Happened right at the end of the season.
That is a very weird signing to me.
But my point is, right, so I've got Middlesbrough to finish 4th. Right, I think they'll be right up there. They're looking like in signing Michael Hamilton from Manchester City on loan. I think they're going to be really strong this season. Would you swap Browney, more directing this at you, maybe even you, Chris, as well, but would you swap Bamford for Bergzorg?
No, not in a million years.
No.
Yeah. So Sheffield Wednesday, I don't know who's the main man up front for Sheffield Wednesday now, right? But I've got Sheffield Wednesday finishing the playoffs with West Brom, right?
I think that's fair.
Would you swap Thomas Asante from West Brom for Bamford?
He's at Coventry now.
Has he gone to Coventry? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he's gone to Coventry because they've got. I mean, again, slightly odd, but I can still see it working for West Brom. Is they've brought Devante Cole in from Barnsley, I think he was last season. It's a bit of a strange one.
That is a real strange one.
But again, wouldn't surprise me if Corbron got him fine, because he's always been all right at League One level. It's just never quite done it at Championship.
You get where I'm coming from, though.
I do.
Right? You get where I'm coming from. I'm making a point that, like Norwich, I think they're going to probably finish mid-table this season. I think Josh Sargent is a good Championship striker. Yeah. But he'd want to start. Well. I know. He'd want to start week in, week out, though, with Josh Sargent. And the fact is that he wouldn't start week in, week out in this squad.
In your rankings, where have you got Coventry? Because I could see them off the back of last season's probably disappointing season, having a good one and being well in amongst that playoff race.
7th to 14th.
Say that Coventry is the one to watch.
I've got them finishing 7th.
See, this is the reason that I'm not as cut and dry on Leeds being guaranteed top 2 is because I think they're in a. I don't know. I appreciate what we were saying about the whole Leicester, Southampton going up, and on the whole, by losing them, the league isn't as strong. But it's like we did the show on Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday night, the League One preview show, and we're like, well, that's the most competitive division. But equally, we've lost bigger clubs, arguably, have gone to make that actually a stronger or at least a more competitive division. That's kind of how I'm looking at the Championship. Actually, is that Leicester, Southampton, Ipswich were the anomaly, but obviously turned out to be bloody brilliant last season. And actually, because of that, I think actually is a slightly more even playing field. I just don't quite see Leeds right now. And let's be honest, like from what you're saying about how you're sweating until the window shuts, like anything could happen.
Well, that's a different conversation, isn't it? The conversation that we're having now with the squad that we have now could be very different in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah,
I actually agree with you on the competitiveness of the league. I think the points totals will be less this season. I don't think you'll see, conversations of Leicester hitting 100 points. I don't think you'll see any of that. I don't think they'll be anywhere near that. So I would then predict that, the whoever will be the top 2, they're still going to take more points because of the quality they've got. I would also argue, and again, I don't know whether you'd agree with this or not, maybe with the exception of Burnley, they have a couple of real top players, but I would still say even them. I reckon that every other team in the division would swap their 11 with ours. Every single one of them.
I think so, yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Come on, Chris.
Are
definitely.
You for real?
Jaden Bogle, Joe Rodon, Pascal Struijk, Junior Firpo, Gio Rutter, Willie Nonto.
Ampadu.
Yeah, Ampadu. I'm telling you, if they had the choice, right, we've got the opportunity to swap our 11 with your 11. I'd even say Luton would do it. And I really Luton.
I'm. Oh my God, this is blowing my head. This is. I imagine that's absolute nonsense because I imagine.
Well, who are you arguing against?
So I'm just first in my head is Burnley because what we're looking at here is a Burnley squad that hasn't changed much from the side that won 2 years ago. So that is still a predominantly title-winning squad. I really don't think there's that many players in that squad that there'll be a couple. You take it on form Nonto, you take it on form Rutter, but I don't. Looking at the squad on the whole, it's a bloody good squad that Burnley have got. And look, and I know you don't like it in the way it is, but I really think Sheffield United will be up there. I think they've signed obvious Championship quality.
I think you're on a Madden. I think you're on an absolute Madden. Absolute Madden.
I really and I'm not being funny. I don't like. Yes, Firpo's good for the Championship, but Christ, Leeds fans have been slagging him off since he turned up for the most part because of how poor he can be defensively.
Not in the Championship.
I know in the Championship he's better, but that still doesn't make him, the best left back in the league.
All right, who's Burnley's left back?
Good question. I've not thought this through. It was Charlie Taylor. He's on Southampton. They've signed the lad from Santos, Bruno Pires, I think. To be fair, I can't say much about him. I've not seen him play for Santos.
I'm just looking through their squad now, right? So, Sander Berger, obviously.
Let me just find me tab that I had open from earlier.
You take Sander Berger in the lead squad straight away, of course, in the midfield. But the likelihood is he ain't going to be there come the end of the window, right? I would probably then say Wilson Odobert, but I wouldn't put him in over any of our boys, if I'm honest. I wouldn't start him.
I mean, Odobert, Koleosho, Lyle Foster as a striker at Championship. He's going to be lethal this season. Lyle Foster. He really
good.
is.
I'd still trust Joseph over him, if I'm honest. From what I've seen of Joseph, I would.
It's Parker though, isn't it? I mean, it's not Company anymore. I mean, how is Parker going to get
exactly.
on there? You rate Parker though, don't you, Chris?
Look, I'm not necessarily saying out and out rate him. However, I don't think he's anywhere near as bad again as he. I think he's been tarnished by the Club Brugge debacle that he had. But again,
and the Bournemouth debacle when he basically sold his whole squad out.
He talked himself out of that job as well. Though, remember, he was actually on good form for Bournemouth at the time he got sacked because he used his mouth.
Apart from losing 8-0 in the game before he went. And then Gary O'Neill, completely unproven manager, came in and just showed him completely up to be talking utter crap. Scott Parker said that team couldn't stay up, and Gary O'Neill came in and kept them up.
Fair enough, but
Come on, Chris.
I'm just not having the fact that Parker's a terrible manager.
Terrible manager.
There's been far worse managers.
Is there anyone else? I mean, looking at some of the other kind of, championship mainstays, you look at Hull, you look at Sunderland. I think both got new managers, haven't they?
Yeah, Hull are going to be a weird one because if they'd have stuck with Liam Rosenior over the summer, I'd have looked at them and thought that I would have expected them to have had a reasonable summer of building and have gone on again. In this case, they've got, I can't remember his full name. Is it Tim something?
Yeah,
Tim German chap who came from Hamburg.
Looks like they're signing Liam Miller as well.
They've lost Philogene, haven't they, though?
Yeah.
Liam Miller's going to be his replacement by the looks of it. They're apparently pretty much on the verge of signing him.
As good as Hull were last season, like on the fringe of that playoff hunt, is where I'm expecting a Middlesbrough to be this time around because they had a poor year last year. I'm expecting them to be better. I think West Brom are going to be up there again. Mostly because of Corberan, regardless of the squad they actually put together. I think Corberan's a good enough coach to get them there.
I agree.
Sunderland again is a weird one. The unknown French chap again, whose name eludes me.
Regis Lebris, I'm reading
That's
here.
It, Lebris.
Lebris.
I mean, they just seemed to really struggle, didn't they, in terms of actually appointing a successor to what turned out to be Michael Beale, because it was Beale, then a caretaker, once it was Dodds as caretaker. And then over the summer, it seemed taken forever to actually appoint this guy who we know very little about. So God knows what to make of Sunderland. Who's Bristol City gaffer now? Is it Ryan Manning?
Yeah.
They're a side that always should do better than they do.
Mid-table.
Yeah.
Norwich. I mean, we know Norwich are getting
Norwich
losing players out there, but
they're getting picked off left, right, and centre. A couple of seasons out of the Premier League now has absolutely killed them on it. So
it just depends though, because it's the new guy that they got from Mitchell. He came in from.
Yeah.
And this is where things are always improving, because when players are picked off, if you've got a foreign manager coming in that actually is then going to go back to his old haunt to bring in a few players that, let's be honest, we may not know about. Yeah. They could actually turn out to be one extreme or the other. They could actually be absolute gems, or they could be a bit, average. And obviously, as a squad, that Norwich side that should be up there actually becomes a bit more mid-table. Yeah. I think it's going to be a really interesting campaign, and I think there's again, like we were saying about League One, I reckon there's probably 8 to 10 teams that are looking at those top 6 places. And I reckon there's probably about half a dozen clubs that will be eyeing up the top 2. I really do.
I'm putting it in this way: is that obviously I'm bigging up my team, but ultimately I'm putting pressure on the team too, as most of the Leeds fans are, because I don't think there can be any excuses. I think it was fair to create a few excuses last season for the ultimate, finishing of third, if you like, right? But this season, regardless of the strength of other squads, we are still extremely strong. And this club, this team, given the finances that are involved and everything else, it needs to go up. It needs to finish in the top 2. It's come out today, hasn't it, Browney, or was it yesterday, that the basically the rules now are such that we have to pay off outstanding transfer fees before we can spend.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the reason that we're bringing in all this income in before then any is going out is because we physically can't, by the rules, not just PSR, but the way that the league system rules are, is that these outstanding transfers that are, agreed to over 3-4 years or whatever have to be paid off before we can spend a certain amount more money. Right. I don't fully understand the exact ins and outs of it, but that's what I'm led to believe from what I've read today. So, and that's only going to get worse. If we don't go up again, that's only going to get worse. So, given Burnley's transition, given certainly Sheffield United's transition, as even the 4th strongest squad, given the fact that the 3 relegated teams potentially should be or could be stronger than us, we have to take advantage of that and finish in the top 2. We just have to. The Daniel Farke gets no leeway from me this season. And I know you're exactly the same, Brownie, are you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, this is a season for me where it's if it doesn't happen this season, we're looking at what Norwich are facing this summer. Absolutely, players go in and everything. There's the pressure is right from the off. If it's a bad start to the season, for me, Farke's 6 to 10 games.
You've
have us
just
on track.
You've literally just taken the question out of my mouth. Is how many games does he get if after 10 games you've won 4, drawn 3, lost 3? Like, how many games does he actually get before the axe is yielded?
Well, this is it, and it's the performances as well. If you're not seeing it in the performances, if some of the kind of trends of how we saw things happen last year kind of kick off again this season, it's not going to be too great. Having said that, they look really good. I mean, it is only pre-season, but they do look very strong. They've had a very strong pre-season. I would bet we'll fly out of the blocks, would be my guess as to what would happen. But if it doesn't, yeah, I think 6 to 10 games. If it's not going well, they'll bullet him.
I agree.
Do you reckon, Jade? Do you reckon?
Yeah, I reckon by October. What would that be? 10, 12 games, something like that. August, September, maybe a little bit more, maybe 10 to 15.
Yeah, you're looking like 12.
Something in and along them lines. It depends. Again, it depends on how the performances are to a point. Because if you're playing well and just coming off with the odd unlucky result, and you're still only in 4th or 5th, then you might give it a little bit more time. But I don't think he'll get long. I don't think the 49ers are going to be patient this season at all. It's very clear what their expectations is. Danny Rowell would be a great replacement. I just want to mention on Gail's comment about getting rid of Grayson and Kamara, because I keep on repeating myself with this, like on socials and what. Sure, any side that loses Grayson and Kamara is going to be weaker for them 3 transfers if you don't replace them, right? But we have got replacements. And my point on Gray is that while he's a generational talent, he played as a backup option at right back all of last season, and we have replaced him with a better right back. Archie Gray is not a better right back than Jayden Bogle. He's not a more suited attacking fullback to Daniel Farke's system as Jayden Bogle. It's just not. So in that sense, we're more balanced, and we do have better depth. Brendan Aronson and Max Verber coming in, Joe Rothwell coming in for whatever he is going to contribute to this squad. Mateo Joseph stepping up a season and progressing. The likes of Daniel James, Willie Nonto, Junior Firpo, Joe Rodon, Pascal Stroik, Ethan Ampadu, all of these players that played great last season, progressing and having an even better season this season. With a season behind them, with the Daniel Farke system and pre-season behind them. All of that matters to this squad being better. I think this squad is better than last season's squad. It's definitely better than the squad that we started the season with. So I don't. Let's not give no excuses to Daniel Farke. I've lost Chris Somerville. I don't want to hear that because I don't agree with it.
I agree. I think that any other Championship manager would give the right arm to be managing that group of players in this situation. I think we're absolutely favourites. And we've got to live up to it. The problem is we're Leeds United, though, aren't we? So we find the way to cock it up more often than not, unfortunately.
I do think Johnny Rowe will be a great signing, and it is looking like that one's going to get done. Yeah. I don't know if Chris is frozen. It looks like
I was going to say
But I'd be interested to get his feelings on it, because I do think it's a top signing. I think it's a good replacement while being a little bit different to Somerville. He's got progression. Again, we've targeted a player that's in the last year of his contract that we're going to go out there and get for not a steal, but for less money than his overall potential value. And again, we can look to potentially sell him on. English, it makes a big difference as well. A bit of English tax gives us that extra for the homegrown quarter and all the rest of it. So, but yeah, what's your feelings, Chris, on Johnny Rowe?
I think that's a cracking signing if it comes in. Yeah, sorry, I think I wanted to issue my Wi-Fi just then, by the way, where it just went to pot altogether. I think it's a cracking signing if it comes in, although apparently Birmingham are sniffing. And now I'm not saying that that's a more appealing prospect. Yep, again, we were talking about this the other night. Apparently they're interested. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that he's going to choose Birmingham over Leeds. However, if they offer him 4 times the wages, which they probably could do,
he ain't going to step down to League One.
Birmingham are trying to build a squad, though, and this is what Sam was saying the other night, is that they are trying to build a squad now ready for the Championship and ready to be like top 10 in the Championship next season sort of thing.
He's not going to step down.
I'm just saying, money talks.
How would they do that, though, PFR-wise and everything?
Well, it doesn't apply in League One. There is no... the restraints for League One aren't there as much as they are in the Championship at all.
No. Didn't the Huddersfield sporting director come out the other day and said that they're basically hamstrung by PSR in League One?
Because it was saying about Ipswich.
It was saying about Ipswich would have been screwed because of the spend that they did in League One if they hadn't have gone to the Premier League.
But this is, I mean, as I'm going off kind of what had been said the other night, but that's like from the Birmingham perspective, they're like, we are basically putting the money into it now to be ready for the Championship, so that we already have these players, we already have this wage bill, we don't have to spend a shit ton extra then and then run into the issues. As regards Rowe, though, if he comes in and gets over the line, I think it's a good one.
I'm expecting that to be done.
It's a player that comes in off the back of one good season. I think we mentioned this on Monday night as well, actually.
Yeah,
he's had kind of one breakthrough season and done really well with it, but then was he injured second half of the season a bit? But
January
getting him, keeping it fit, it could be a really good signing and good replacement. I mean, this is the way that the rest of this window pans out for you guys is a bit like if you do lose a Rutter, if you do lose Nonto, it's the key thing is replacing them. But there does seem to be the structure in place. I'm right in thinking with the 49ers that you kind of trust them, even if it was the final week of the window when you lost a big player. You'd have the faith that they'll be replaced in time or hopefully on deadline day to make it interesting for us.
Well, this was the thing, you see, when we sold Gray, that was supposed to that was it. The gun wasn't against our head anymore. We thought at that point we didn't have to make any sales, and then obviously it's come out that some of those got a release clause. The thing that me and Jason were talking about earlier is if we look at Rutter, is there a release clause there? And then you're just screwed, basically.
Everything's hush-hush on that, isn't it, at the moment? Like, nobody's saying there is, nobody's saying there isn't.
Club and not saying that there isn't one. So,
they're not saying that there isn't, but they're not saying that there definitely isn't either.
Something like that, something like that. So... God knows.
I think the likelihood is that there probably is, and I think what I would say is that if it was easily attainable, I think it'd have already gone. The noise was that Brighton made an offer of 30 million, so the fact that it hasn't gone for that tells you that it must be some figure
35, 40, 45 sort of thing.
And as much as I rate him, and I really do, I think he's got the potential to be elite, the absolute top. I don't believe that many clubs will want to run the risk of spending that on him just yet.
That's
where I'm at.
Just before I disappear and later to get back to your lovely show, are you saying, like, especially obviously with you, Jay, doing your kind of predictions and positions, have you got any surprises in there? Any surprise packages that you think? Because there's always usually one. But obviously last year in the extreme it was Ipswich.
I'm worried about. I'm worried about.
There's usually always one club. I mean, I think Jay, you said earlier Sheffield Wednesday. You've got them around the playoffs. I could see that myself. I think they could be a surprise.
Yeah, and I would argue that would be a surprise. I know a few people have picked them because of the form at the back end of last season or the second half of last season, even. But I still think that'd be a shock if they finished fifth.
Because of how well Danny Reel came across as a pundit on ITV as well. He got a lot of fans for that as well.
Yeah, he did. But apart from that, I'm struggling to really pick a favourite, like an outside bogey team at the moment. I think Blackburn are going to really struggle. I've picked them from my bottom three. I think they are in a real bad way. I mean, they've still got Pears as their number one. He's an awful goalkeeper. Schmodix is probably going to leave.
Plymouth under Rooney. Nobody fancies that one.
Well, Plymouth, I've got them as 23rd. I think they'll go down. And Oxford, obviously, unfortunately, as bottom. I think if there is going to be a side to create a surprise package, it probably will be Portsmouth. But that is all dependent on keeping that momentum and being able to show the levels up of quality that they'd need. I don't think that they have the same kind of squad as Ipswich when they did it. I don't think it's the same. I mean, Nipper says about Coventry.
Thing is, I wouldn't.
I don't know if it's a surprise package though.
I wouldn't see that unless they were top two. I wouldn't necessarily see that as too much of a surprise.
Yeah, great.
Are we kind of ruling out established Championship clubs that have just never quite, i.e., your Stokes, your Bristol City, sides that have always been Championship, but haven't managed to kind of get themselves back into those playoff hunts, like especially like Stoke would have always wanted to.
Mid-table.
Are we not seeing any of those sorts of clubs? Just not.
Well, Leeds were a few years ago. Just
a bunch of mid-tables.
Yeah.
Watford, Cardiff, Millwall, Swansea. All of them I think are just going to be mid-table.
Ryan's just made a very fair point, by the way. I think. Sorry. The surprises will be teams finishing lower than expected rather than higher.
Yeah.
Leeds. Sorry. I'll leave now.
Right.
I already saw
you're welcome.
Yeah.
time to go, Mr. Bell.
I think it's a fair point, though. I think actually there will be sides that we expect to be up there that might not.
That'll be where your Scott Parker premonition.
I knew you were going to say that. You were about to say either Scott Parker and Burnley or Wilder and Sheffield United. You were about to say one of the
Wilder
other.
Will be sacked by Sheffield United before November.
Do you reckon? I just can't see it.
Awful manager.
I just can't see it. There's something about him, that club, and the Championship as a trio combined that just seems to gel. And I really
7 years ago.
Again. I really think it'll be the same again. I hate to say it.
Awful person. Awful man. I hate him. Can't stand him. I cannot stand him. Yeah, heck him for Christmas. That's it, Ryan. You tell him.
Nipper's on the fence with that one, 50-50.
Digler asks here as well, two of the mysteries of the world, the pyramids, and how does Rooney keep getting jobs? He might surprise us.
I don't think he'll be as bad as
maybe not.
People say.
He's on his last chance. I think he's on a real last chance.
Being on the bloody overlap. I don't know when he's got time to manage. He's on the overlap every other week.
Well, he went back from the Euros early, didn't he, for the start of training for Plymouth Argyle?
Wilder
just on the wind-up for you.
No.
Yeah, that'll be it.
So
Parker will get the axe in November, but Sheffield United will have already sat Wilder come October, so he'll be available on the market. Championship experience. There you go. And on that note, I will leave you to conclude your podcast.
Thank you for bobbing in.
Cheers, Chris.
Cat amongst the pigeons.
I just thought it'd be a bit of fun to talk about the Championship as a wider entity. So
we appreciate it. Good. We appreciate it.
What's the first game on Friday night? Again, I can't remember what's the Friday night game.
Burnley's Monday. Is it Luton?
Hang on. Let's have a look.
Might be Luton.
I can't remember now.
Then let's get ready to get used to random kickoffs at random times, more so than usual.
It's Preston Sheffield United
or Blackburn Derby tomorrow.
Derby Sheffield United.
I think it's Blackburn Derby that's probably on like the Sky Sports channel, and the other one will be on Sky Sports Plus, because this is another thing that we now only have to get used to. The fact that a little bit different, actually, I guess, because more so for League 1 and 2, but for the Championship, I guess you've always had all the Championship games on a Tuesday and Wednesday night on the telly. They've just been behind the red button. Bit different, I guess, for League 1 and 2, because I'll be honest, and you won't care, Jay, but League 1 and 2 fans aren't used to be able to see their clubs on telly. You can't all be Leeds United, so.
I mean, I just watch them all on the radio, mate. So,
yes, you are an avid fan of the radio, aren't you?
The radio, yeah.
The radio, yes. Right, I will leave you, gents. But thanks for having me on.
Not a problem, mate. Well,
take care, and I'll speak to you soon.
Bye. There we go.
Yeah, nice little Chris on the Leeds show.
Pop it in, causing havoc as
always.
As always. I mean, look, we've been going for an hour and a half, Jay. So
I don't know how we've done that.
But just to kind of round things up, season starts again, Jason. I think, we're going to tie it up to where we started from. And what we touched on with Chris then is that this is a critical season, isn't it? I think more critical than last year. And I know you got to judge seasons on its own, but for me this season, it's just got to be pretty much perfect, really. It's a high bar and it's difficult. And you know, like we always say, there's two teams competing every game, but I just feel we've got to really be on it from start to finish, really. And I think it's got to be promotion. It's got to be the automatics, and that's it, really.
I think ultimately this season is a get out of jail free card for last season. You know, and we could afford to miss out last season, given the fact that we had another opportunity. If we fail again this season, the facts are is that we're going to see even more churn. We're not going to see the players of the quality of a Gio Rutter, a Matteo Joseph, you know, a Jaden Bogle. We're not going to see them. Ethan Ampadu. These are Premier League players that are trying to force Leeds United up a division and make their kind of aspirations felt with Leeds United rather than just getting a ticket to the Premier League directly. So, yeah, I think it's an absolutely massive, massive season because I would not want to be part of next summer's transfer dealings if we miss out again. We're so far behind if we had the cuts that we'd have to make, the squad that we would then have to compose and put together. It's pressure, but we've got the opportunity to. It's on us. It's on this team to do it. Daniel Farke to do it.
Yeah, as Nipper says, it's Leeds. All can happen. But Ryan, I've never been more confident and content as a Leeds fan going into a season, and the stakes are probably at the highest. That's the thing, is it? That squad of players, that manager. You know, surely it's going to come together for us. But we'll wait and see. We're going to try and do something over the weekend. I've got a bit of a busy one, but I know Jay's shaking his. I'm letting the team down. I know it's terrible.
Unbelievable.
But we'll try and figure something out. If we don't, we will be back Monday. And then I think there's a cup game, isn't it? Next Wednesday.
Yeah,
it's
Wednesday,
isn't it?
Yeah,
Which is a pretty tricky, kind of intense.
Always the same with the League Cup, isn't it?
Like,
yeah.
Jesus, couldn't we have had like a League Two team or something? Like, Jesus.
We made that work last year, mate. So.
Oh God, we did, didn't we? But we'll be back then. I want to thank everybody who's watched along this evening and commented. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel on YouTube as well. Give us a follow on X as well. You can catch all our stuff. We're all over the place now. We've got stuff on TikTok as well. So if you're a TikToker, search for the West Yorkshire Football Show. We're on there as well. Like I say, we'll be back hopefully over the weekend at some point. If not, it'll be next Monday. So do keep it tuned then. Here we go, Leeds United. Once more, we're at that point, and we'll see how we get on. Come on, the boys. Jason, hopefully this time in 9 months or something, we'll be kind of putting his feet up and getting ready for the Premier League. But we'll wait and see, won't we?
Not another playoff journey, mate. And I love you, but I don't want to have to get in that cowie again and go down there.
Oh no, please, honestly, I can't. Can you just imagine if that happened? I swear, I'd be like, mate, don't get us tickets. Do not get us tickets sorted this time. Good stuff. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining along. I've been Stephen Brown. With me has been Jason Booker. Jason, thank you very much, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you to Chris Bell as well for popping in as well. Always appreciated.
Kind of.
And we will catch you again soon. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.